Bartholomew Town is brought to you in part by the University of Rhode Island Online, Navigant Credit Union, the Audubon Society of Rhode Island, Newport Film, and Half Street Group.
Bartholomew Town.
Hi, Bill. Thanks for having us. My name is Erin Papa. I am an assistant professor of world languages education at Rhode Island College and the co-founder and director of the Coalition for Multilingual Rhode Island.
My name's Alicia Pratt, and I'm the coordinator at the Coalition for Multilingual Rhode Island.
Bill, it's always a pleasure. My name is David Morales, and I serve as a state representative in the city of Providence, and I'm proud to be the sponsor of the Bilingual, Dual Language, and World Language Teachers Investment Act.
All right, so longtime listeners may remember we actually began working on this topic and having discussions with, I know Erin just mentioned it was 2019 offline, which is kind of a shocking thing that it was before COVID because it doesn't seem that long ago. But dual language immersion and really just multi-language learning is something that it's made a lot of progress practically, legislatively, and even just in terms of anecdotally, I think there's been a renewed sense of importance, particularly inside the Providence metro, urban core, urban green area, even on the outside of that realm. But there's a lot more work to be done. So I guess the right thing to do is kind of tee it up. Erin, give us in some where we're at with multi-language learning in the state of Rhode Island right now.
So I was just listening to what we talked about in 2019, and in some ways I feel like we have made a lot of progress, and in others it feels like we're having a similar conversation. We have seen definitely more interest in multilingual education, more support for multilingual learners. The state has put multilingual learners in the funding formula, so there's more support for them. We have the fastest growing population of multilingual learners in the nation in terms of percentage of our student population. So I think we know that our state is very multilingual and that this is a significant subset of our population. So there has been a lot more attention on multilingual education. The Department of Education just updated the multilingual learner regulations, which received a lot of public comment. And in those regulations, we were happy to see that they have elevated bilingual program models as the best program models and the priority program models for multilingual learners. So that, of course, helps what we've been advocating for all of these years. I think our main challenge still remains that we need more teachers, which is what we hope to focus on a bit more today.
Right. That's certainly fundamental. Teachers who are in it also for the long haul that can help develop programs and implement programmatic change. Similar question, just kind of surface level overview, your take, Alicia, on where we're at overall statewide in this conversation.
Yeah, just to echo some of what Erin said, I think that there's been a lot of progress made. We were really excited about that prioritization given to bilingual programs. But again, the challenge remains, and of the challenge of recruiting and retaining teachers remains. And I think a lot of that is due to the financial barriers. A lot of that pool of teachers that want to be bilingual teachers are already working in a classroom, whether as paraprofessionals or on emergency certs, and to get fully certified. It's a challenge when they're, already working, they have family responsibilities, and then they have to take coursework and pay for that coursework. So one of the things we're trying to do is we can't give teachers, the time it takes to do the coursework, but what we can do is not make it a financial barrier. So through the Bilingual, Dual Language, and World Language Teachers Investment Act, we're trying to give straight up tuition costs for those teachers in order to become fully certified. And then we'll have teachers that reflect our students and can build rapport because they'll hopefully be around for the long haul.
And fortunately for all of us, the person who is sponsoring that piece of legislation is Representative David Morales, who's on the call with us. And Rep, from your experience, why is this something that is an important piece of legislation to you? I mean, it's an obvious question. It's like, how soft of a question could you possibly ask? But I guess I'm just asking, kind of from your standpoint, wax on about it, make your pitch to your fellow legislators as to why this is critical.
Of course. So over the last decade, it's important to note that our multilingual population amongst students has doubled. Today, the state of Rhode Island is home to over 18,000 multilingual learners. Between Newport and Woonsocket, respectively, they each have a multilingual learner population of over 15%. Within Providence and Central Falls, our multilingual learner population is well over 30%. So it is clear that we have a growing community of multilingual learners that deserve the necessary support and resources inside of the classroom. Because despite this growing number and the level of diversity that we're seeing across our public school system, we are not seeing that reflected within the workforce through our educators. Because despite having over 18,000 multilingual learners across the state, less than 5% of educators are certified in bilingual education. Less than 5% are certified in world language education. Therefore, it's very clear that this is an urgent issue across the state. And to ensure that we have intentional support systems in place for our multilingual learners, that requires us to better support our educators. And that should take the form of ensuring that aspiring educators that hope to teach in Rhode Island, or those that are already in the workforce, have the access and the support to be able to achieve these certifications without the financial burden, and most importantly, with direct support from the state and the respective school districts. So I think now more than ever, we need to meet the moment, and that looks like ensuring that every educator has access to these certifications.
Yeah, it also is just fundamental to the reality of the world as it currently stands and where it's going. It's, you know, it's not just those 18,000 students that you'd mentioned. I mean, that's obviously the focal point of this discussion from a practical standpoint and from just almost like a standpoint of equity, right? But also, you know, we've talked, Aaron, I remember we talked about this back in, you know, I had a Spanish teacher at Charahoe High School that didn't speak Spanish. I mean, it was made to be a joke. And that set me back a lot. And it's really impacted my life in a negative way, even to this day. I don't have fundamental tools when it comes to non-English language learning. And so even for those students who aren't necessarily multilingual from the standpoint of English as a second language or is a co-primary language, we got to get our act together and rethink how we're approaching this from the standpoint of a globalized society that is unavoidable. Your take on that, Erin?
Absolutely, Bill. I think it's a challenge for us because the United States has been so proud of its English monolingualism, I think, historically. So I think we come up against that in all of our advocacy and in trying to grow language programs for all students, multilingual learners and English dominant students. And we just don't have enough teachers, I think, partly because it's like the chicken and the egg, right? We haven't had enough programs, enough support for these kinds of programs. But the state has now made world languages a graduation requirement, elevating the focus in that area. And yeah, we do still hear from a lot of adults, a lot of decision makers that didn't have a very positive experience learning languages in school. I think, but part of that reason is, and in your case, that's very unfortunate that your teacher didn't speak the language they were teaching.
Yeah.
That's very unusual, I think. That's not good. That's unusual. But I think the main challenge, or the reason that a lot of people have, will say that they took 2 or 3 years of the language and can't speak a word, is because it's really not long enough. They didn't sustain the learning of the language. They weren't really immersed in the language and didn't continue using the language. We know that it takes many years. For English learners, it's often talked about that they need 5 to 7 years to develop the English language proficiency to really engage with academic content. And so we don't really think about it that way for English speakers who are learning other languages, but it's the same. So we start way too late with language learning in the US. So, in most cases, students don't have an opportunity to take a language until they get to high school, after they've gone through puberty, which is not the most ideal time. It's not impossible. I've learned really all of my languages as an adult. I did start with Spanish in middle school and took that through high school, but learned German in college as an adult, but had the opportunity to spend a full year in Germany immersed in the language. So that really helped solidify my language skills and to sustain them over time. So even though I don't use German on a regular basis now, I can still go right back to it when I need to. And with Spanish, I use it every day in the community. And I think with Spanish and with our other top languages that are spoken in Rhode Island, like Portuguese and French and Haitian Creole, Arabic, Chinese, we have opportunities to really use those languages right here in Rhode Island. So I think something else that we've been thinking about is how do we leverage that and really connect language education programs with the communities that we have right here. And as a state, for us to leverage those strengths that we have within those communities that, Rhode Island is not an English monolingual state. We are a very diverse, very multilingual place. And what we'd like to see is that we stop hearing those kind of unfortunate stories of how, my grandparents spoke Italian, but they didn't pass it on to us, right? And the kind of the shame around the languages of our families. So we don't want to prevent that from continuing to happen, because we know that it's actually the best way for students to learn English is to develop a high level of literacy in their home language. So the same with English speakers learning other languages. As long as we are continuing to invest in developing multilingual skills and developing literacy in both languages and sustaining those languages over time, we will see results. But if we continue to encourage students to just take 2 years of a language and check it off their list, right, we will not see real success and real results.
No, there's no question. We're missing there's so much to what you just said that there's really no point to even recap, because everything you just said is just so foundational. It actually speaks to my heart very deeply from personal experiences and setbacks and so on and so forth. Couple more minutes on this, Alicia. From your standpoint, when we communicate this to the general public, and there's no question, there's two things. One, Rhode Island is definitely a very diverse, multilingual state that has so much tradition embedded in that identity. But there's also a sense that, at least I feel, maybe I'm biased from spending a lot of time on like radio and things like this where people call in, but there is a sensibility that, or a sense of, a lot of people might be asking outside of Providence, Newport, and Woonsocket, well, why is this important? And we don't want to spend money on something like this, So how do you get them on board? How do you get people who probably wouldn't care on board with something like this?
Yeah, I think that's definitely something that we think a lot about. And I think that one thing is that we're like, if we're looking outside of our context, like just looking outside of Rhode Island, or even having like a more expansive view, like 67% or 2/3 of the world is bilingual, and it's just like built into the framework of their education system. I can speak to my own experience. I grew up in Mexico, emigrated to the United States, and when I would go back home to see my childhood friends, by the time that I was in high school and taking my first language classes, they were already trilingual. They had, Spanish, English, French. Some of them were even taking another foreign language, and it was just built in. No one was really like, there was no opposition, because they saw it as the asset that it truly is. So there's seeing people, like showing people that there are opportunities that come with language learning that are not just like, the social and emotional opportunities of like being able to connect with your neighbors. Like that's not always the most effective. But when we talk about like the economic opportunities, like 9 out of 10 US employers are looking for bilingual candidates and they're paying them more. I think that makes for a really effective argument. But again, going back to what Aaron said about the history of language laws, I think that the US has an unfortunate history of forced assimilation and erasure of home languages, and being able to connect with people, like, almost everyone has a language story. Like monolingual English speakers in Woonsocket still will have a language story from their grandparents, their parents, of coming to Woonsocket or generations back, having another language that they're no longer able to participate in. And I think that is also effective because we're saying like that has been the norm for too long, and we're trying to combat it so that it's no longer the norm, and we can reclaim your home languages while also making sure that the community languages that exist now don't face that same violent history.
Bartholomew Town.
Birds are disappearing from our landscape at a rapid pace. Over 1/3 of those breeding on Audubon Society of Rhode Island's wildlife refuges are in decline. Climate change has taken a toll on their migration, nesting, and food sources. While science is highlighting the problem, Audubon is working on real solutions with a plan to rapidly reduce their carbon emissions. The organization will be free of fossil fuels by 2030, with renewable energy powering Audubon's buildings, equipment, and vehicles. To shape our future, all of us must act. Learn more about Repowering Audubon, their avian research, and how you can join their fight for climate resiliency. Visit asri.org/repower. Newport Film screens the latest, critically acclaimed documentary films year-round across Rhode Island. Like a film festival, Newport Film often gets early access to films before they're available online or in the theaters. Stay up to date on their latest screening events at newportfilm.com or on Instagram @NewportFilm. Are you looking to advance in your career or explore a new field? The University of Rhode Island now offers a comprehensive portfolio of fully online programs designed to bring world-class education to you anytime, anywhere. Choose from a wide range of flexible, asynchronous programs in business and leadership, data, tech, and STEM, healthcare and pharmacy, marine and environmental science, and more. With expert faculty and innovative courses, you'll gain the skills and knowledge to thrive in today's competitive world. Are you ready to take the next step? Visit uri.edu/online and discover how URI Online can help you achieve your goals. URI Online, learn anywhere with us. Half Street Group brings a new generation's perspective to leadership communication, strategic public relations, and digital marketing. Half Street helps organizations and leaders take control of their own stories and manage their reputations. They get results for their clients by focusing on audience message and culture, and by leveraging their decade-long relationship with media and opinion leaders in the Ocean State and throughout New England. Join me and Half Street Group founder and president Mike Rea for a conversation every month about news of the day, the hottest media analysis, and a look behind the scenes at how impactful leaders drive conversations. Learn more at halfstreetgroup.com. As Rhode Island's first ever member-owned credit union, Navigant Credit Union has been a staple in the local business community for more than 108 years. Today, Navigant is a $3.4 billion institution serving more than 136,000 members across 25 physical branch locations. But since its founding in 1915, the mission has never changed. Navigant Credit Union's team of financial professionals have remained committed to improving the financial well-being of the families, businesses, and communities they serve across Rhode Island. Learn more at navigantcu.org.
Well said. Couldn't agree more. Rep Morales, just one last thought from you in terms of what other legislative opportunities do you see from the standpoint of not only with students, school-age students, but also with adults in preparing the state for the contemporary and future economies? We talk about the blue economy and some of these major initiatives. That's going to require a workforce that is not just a younger workforce, but sort of an age agnostic workforce that can communicate on a multilingual level. So what other opportunities, if any, are you looking at legislatively?
Absolutely. So, Bill, what you just alluded to is a diverse workforce, one that is multicultural, multiracial, and multi-generational. And in order to achieve that, it requires state investments. And that is why we need to have further levels of advocacy and support in the state budget when we talk about adult education. When we are discussing the different ways that we can further empower our immigrant community, our immigrant neighbors to be able to earn their GED and then establish a pathway for them to enter different means of programs, whether it is an apprenticeship program like Building Futures, whether it is pursuing a bachelor's degree through the form of College Unbound or Rhode Island College, and being able to have layers of support embedded through scholarship programs where one can have access to economic opportunity free of cost on the basis that they are putting in that level of work necessary to be able to move forward. And that's where we are right now. In terms of the future of our economy here in our state, we recognize that we have a growing community. We have a more diverse community than we've ever had before. And we need to ensure that everyone's going to have access to decent paying jobs. And a large piece of that is going to be centered around the investments that are made towards multilingual resources and services. And that's going to start with adult education and pathway programs.
Yeah, super, super important. Something, again, does it get the front row attention that it needs? I'm not sure it always does, but it deserves to be put into the upper echelon of conversation. In fact, it must be. And we are been talking a lot about the U.S.'s standing on a global level. We think about some of the buffoonery that we're emitting out into the world right now. Some of the, I would go down a rabbit hole here, but some of the might and hard power that we've deployed in extremely dangerous and bad ways. And one of the ways that we can try to regain some standing is by interacting with the world in a reasonable and equitable way. And to do that, we need human beings who can communicate with other people throughout the world, and more of them. And so this type of work is fundamental to the soup, the ingredients that actually might save this world. So I thank all of you for putting your heart and soul into this. It's so critical. Is there anything else any of you wanted to add?
I wanted to add a couple of things. So what Rep. Morales was talking about, how we need to invest in adult education, which is absolutely critical. I just wanted to share that we did 2 years ago, when we first introduced this bill, we did work with the legislature and the governor's office and the office of the post-secondary commissioner to get some funding put towards this effort to prepare more bilingual, dual language, and world language teachers. So the office of the post-secondary commissioner has something called Rhode Island Reconnect, which is about connecting adults with higher paying jobs, helping them to finish their degree or finish whatever program they need to enter the workforce. And so they did give part of that funding to us in a way, not directly, but to folks who are pursuing bilingual, dual language, and world language certification. So they can access up to $5,000 to help with kind of non-tuition related wraparound supports. So students, for example, in my program have benefited from this. It's helped them to get through their student teaching semester, which in some cases they have to quit their job to complete. It's helped them to pay for gas and rent and other things that may prevent them from completing their degrees. Mm-hmm. So I think we've seen a little support, and we have had some support from the General Assembly with this in the governor's office, but we do need more investment. We don't have enough of these teachers, and it's still a barrier because they still do have additional challenges beyond those kind of $5,000 of kind of wraparound supports throughout their program. So we do need that investment. And we are working with all of the teacher preparation programs, as well as organizations that support immigrants and refugees primarily, who may already have a degree from their home country. It may not be in education, but there are lots of adults who are multilingual and who are interested in working in teaching.
Yeah.
And so we're working on creating pathways for them. So, for example, like the Institute for Labor Studies and Research has a TA program where they focus on international folks with international credentials. So they have lots of multilingual adults in there who want to work in teaching. They can't quite figure out how to get in, so they find a program like that. They get their teacher assistant certificate, and then we're connecting with them. Connecting them with our teacher education programs, and so they can pursue an MAT in World Languages Education, or the master's or graduate level certificate in bilingual dual language to get certified that way. So oftentimes there are folks from that program who get hired on an emergency certificate as a Spanish teacher or as a bilingual dual language social studies teacher, and then they're in our program. So those are the people that we want to support, and they're already here. We want to be able to elevate their potential through this effort.
Incredible. So practical, and also aligns exactly with Governor McKee's 2030 plan, raising incomes, creating jobs. So you would think that, not to mention that it's a critical element of just all of his educational aspirations. So you would think that there'd be a natural effort to push all of this as far as it can get from the governor's office and from the legislative branch as well, with someone like Rep. David Morales, who joins us on the call, making the charge here. Thank you all so much. Really appreciate it. Great conversation.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us, Bill. Yeah. And could we say one more thing? I'm so sorry.
No, there's no time limitation here.
Okay, you can put that in.
Bring it on.
I think Rep. Morales, maybe there's an event today, but also on Tuesday, March 25th, we have our 7th annual Multilingual Education Advocacy Day at the Rhode Island State House. It's from 2 to 5. At 3 o'clock, there'll be a press conference. We invite everyone in the state to come out and show your support for multilingual education to help us advocate for the Bilingual Dual Language and World Language Teachers Investment Act, as well as the Support and Access to Bilingual Education Act. So please come out, and you can find out more at multilingualri.org.
Multilingualri.org. Definitely
yes.
A place that is going to, well, it's definitely a theme that is so critical. Again, I've said this like 5 times in this episode. There's somebody that just like, people are rolling their eyes hearing me say this, but it's just, we've made some critical missteps as a country, and they're coming back to bite us in so many ways right now. And this is among them. The lack of prioritization of multi-language learning is a joke. It's going to continue. It's also not equitable, and it's going to be something that will hurt our prospects economically and psychologically going forward in big ways if we don't get our act together. So again, I commend all of you for fighting this fight.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
All right, I am great. I think that was really good. You guys did a great job. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for stopping by Bartholomew Town. For more content, follow me on Instagram at Bill Bartholomew.